Dave just turned 60, and after 29 years at the plant in Hamilton and a layoff at 58, he's sitting at the kitchen table staring at a government form that wants to know one thing: whether he starts his pension today or waits 5 more years. If he takes it now, Ottawa cuts his check by 36% for the rest of his life, which is exactly why every advisor he's ever met would tell him to wait. And for Dave, that advice could turn out to be the worst money move he ever makes. So here are 8 reasons to take CPP at 60, and then the one reason that can quietly cancel every single one of them. Because this isn't really a story about a government form. It's a story about who you trust to run the last third of your life, you or Ottawa, and I want you to hold on to that thought, because it turns out to be the whole game. Let's get the scary number out of the way first. For every month you start CPP. Before 65, Ottawa shaves 0.6% off your check. So 5 years early adds up to a 36% cut that's permanent and only ever rises again with inflation. You can think of it as a discount, except you're the one handing it to the government for the crime of needing your own money a little early. In 2026 dollars, the maximum pension at 65 is $1,507.65 a month. But start at 60 and it drops to $964.90, while waiting to 70 pushes it up to $2,140.86. So on paper, waiting looks like the obvious winner, and you're left wondering why Dave would ever leave money on the table. Here's why that chart is lying to him though. Starting CPP was never really a math problem, it's a bet. And you're betting on 2 things at once: how long you're going to live and who you trust to hold your money in the meantime. Ottawa is quietly betting the other way, counting on you to either take less now or wait for the bigger check and not quite live long enough to collect all of it. Every reason on this list is just a different version of that same bet. And here's what the brochure skips: that almost nobody gets that shiny maximum anyway, because the average new check at 65 is about $877 a month. Dave's no exception, since his statement says $1,300 a month if he waits, which means taking it early puts him at around $832. Keep that number in mind, because we're going to run it against the coworker who waits. Number 1, and it's the reason the spreadsheet crowd always forgets, is that you actually need the money now. They forget it because they've never lived it. But Dave has. His employment insurance is running out, the furnace repair just came in at $4,000, and the real choice is CPP. Now, or a line of credit at 22% while he waits 5 years for a check that does nothing for him this winter. Framed that way, $832 a month in his account beats a promise of $1,300 he first has to survive until 65 to unlock, and that cash pays the property tax, keeps him off the credit line, and lets whatever's in his RRSP and TFSA keep growing untouched. What the advisor is really telling Dave to do is drain his own savings for 5 years to protect the government's pension, which is like burning your own firewood in September so you can save the furnace for December. Because either way you're cold, you've just chosen to freeze on your own dime first. Now, I know some of you are thinking $800 isn't a retirement, and you're right. It isn't, but it was never meant to be the whole plan. It's the floor underneath it. And a smaller check you can budget around today beats a bigger one you had to borrow against to reach. Because spending your own money just to wait for their money is backwards. And nobody at the branch will say that out loud when waiting is so much easier to defend. Which brings us to the question nobody wants to ask. which is how long Dave really plans on being here. Number 2 is your health and your family history. And this is where you stop thinking about Dave and start doing the math on yourself. There's an age people call the break even, the point where the person who waited finally catches up to the person who took it early, and it lands right around 74. Let me run it with Dave's numbers so it isn't just theory. He takes his $832 a month at 60. So by the time he reaches 65, he's already collected around $50,000, while his coworker Rick, same job and same formula, waited. So on the day Dave is holding 50 grand, Rick is holding nothing. Now Rick starts, and his cheque is bigger, $1,300 a month, so he gains on Dave by about $470 a month, but he's chasing a $50,000 head start at that pace, and the math takes him roughly 9 years just to pull even, which lands him right around 74. Before 74, Dave is ahead, and after 74, Rick moves in front and never looks back. So the whole decision comes down to one blunt question: whether you make it comfortably past 74. Live to 85 and waiting wins by a mile, but pass at 72 and taking it at 60 was the smarter call, and you enjoyed more of it while you were healthy. Statistics Canada says a 65-year-old man lives on average another 19 years and a woman another 22. So for a genuinely healthy person, the odds do lean toward waiting, and I won't hide that from you. But an average is a crowd, and you are one person. Dave's father died at 67, and his brother had a heart attack at 62. So Dave is not the average. And neither are you if your family tree tells the same story. Betting your one retirement on a lifespan table published in Ottawa is a strange kind of optimism, and taking it early isn't giving up, it's collecting money you already paid for while you're still around to spend it on something better than prescriptions. Number 3 is that you may have already stopped working, whether you plan to or not, and this is the trap Dave nearly walked into. Your CPP is built from your working years, an average of what you earned across your whole career. So when you stop at 58, those empty years from 58 to 65 get counted, and they drag that average down. The system throws you one bone, the general dropout, which automatically deletes your weakest stretch of earning, about 17% of your working life, like a referee tossing out your worst years. It helps, but it can't erase 7 straight years of zeros, so some of those empty years land in your average anyway. So when the branch tells Dave to wait for a bigger pension, they're assuming his number keeps climbing while he waits, when really those idle years barely moved it, and he'd be sitting on the couch, unpaid, from 60 to 65, waiting on a cheque that grew by pennies. The advice to wait was written for the guy who keeps working those 5 years, not the guy sitting at home laid off, and if that's you, you get the pain of waiting and almost none of the reward. So before you assume waiting pays off, log into your MyService Canada account and pull the number at 60 and at 65. And see for yourself how small the gap becomes once your earning years are behind you. Number 4 is the one that flips the whole math upside down for lower income Canadians. So stay with me because almost nobody explains this properly. If you're going to lean on the Guaranteed Income Supplement, the GIS, then everything you've heard so far reverses. GIS is extra monthly money the government stacks on top of old age security for lower income seniors, and it starts at 65, but it shrinks as your other income grows, roughly 50 cents of GIS. Lost for every dollar you bring in, and yes, your CPP counts, so picture GIS as a bucket with a hole in the bottom, where the more income you pour in the top, the faster it drains out the bottom. Waiting 5 extra years for a bigger CPP, cheque just pours in faster and drains your GIS. Faster, so you waited half a decade to hand a chunk of the reward right back. Take Linda, 62, widowed, with a small workplace pension and not much else, who will be on GIS the day she turns 65 no matter what. If she waits until 65 for a fuller CPP, a slice of that extra CPP just claws back her GIS at 50 cents on the dollar, but if she takes it at 62, she collects 3 full years of pension before GIS even enters the picture. And the eventual clawback is smaller because her cheque is smaller. So she comes out ahead by taking it early. It's backwards from everything the advisors preach and completely correct for her. One honest caveat: you always net more total income by having more CPP. Nobody loses a full dollar for a dollar. So this isn't a magic loophole, but the gap between early and late shrinks dramatically once GIS is in play, and they will not run this math for you at the branch. And if this is already changing how you see your own number, do me a quick favor and hit subscribe, because this channel runs the Canadian retirement math the banks would rather keep fuzzy every single week. Alright, on to the next 4. Number 5 is that you don't want to be forced to sell your investments in a bad year. And this one wrecked a lot of retirements back in 2022. The market drops 20%, your investments are down, and your plan was to sell a little every month to cover the bills while you wait for CPP. You can see the problem because you're selling low, cashing out right when they've shrunk, and locking that loss in for good. It's selling your seed corn to buy bread, where you eat this week, but you've eaten next year's harvest to do it. And when the market recovers, and it always does, you own less of it, so you recover less. Say you retire at 60 with $200,000 invested. Then 2022 hits, and your portfolio slides to 160, and now you're pulling $15,000 a year out of a shrunken pile, selling a bigger slice of a smaller pie every month. So by the time it claws its way back, there's a lot less of your money left to recover with. Turn CPP on at 60 instead, and that pension income becomes a shield, paying the bills so you can leave the portfolio alone to heal, and every dollar you leave in the TFSA keeps compounding tax-free. For a lot of people, CPP at 60 is the buffer that stops one bad year from wrecking a perfectly good 30-year plan. Number 6 is that you might keep working, and you want to keep building, because a lot of people wrongly think taking CPP means you're done earning. You're not, because you can take it at 60 and keep working, and every year you work while collecting, you keep contributing. And each of those years earns you an extra little pension called the post-retirement benefit. Like loose change, the system drops back in your pocket for staying in the game. It's small, a maximum of $54.69 a month in 2026 for a full year, added on top and indexed for life, so 1 year is minor, but say Dave takes CPP at 60 and picks up part-time work for 4 more years, and now he's stacked 4 of those top-ups, each one permanent and indexed, chipping away at the 36% haircut he took. So taking it at 60 doesn't lock you into the reduced amount forever, because you take the early income and build right back on top of it. Number 7 is for the higher income planners, and it's subtle, because you might be quietly setting yourself up to dodge the OA's clawback. Old age security comes with a recovery tax most people never hear of until it lands on them, and in 2026, once your income passes $95,323, the government claws your OAS back at 15 cents on every dollar over that line. They hand you a pension, then bill you for it if you did too well, giving you the umbrella and then charging you for the rain. So the quiet play is to take smaller CP cheques at 60 and spend your 60s drawing down your RRSP. While your tax bracket is low, which shrinks the mandatory RRIF. Withdrawals waiting to ambush you in your 70s, the exact ones that shove your income over that clawback line right when OASE is meant to help. Smaller CPP. Now buys a lighter tax hit later, and since TFSA withdrawals never count toward the clawback, the TFSA quietly becomes one of the sharpest tools in Canadian retirement planning. Number 8 is simply that you'd rather hold the money yourself than trust Ottawa to hold it for you, and this is the human reason, and it isn't irrational. CPP. Only pays you while you're breathing, with no lump sum for your kids, so if you wait until 70 for that big check and pass away at 71, the pension you held out for just stops. And most of it flows back into the same system Dave paid into for 29 years. Take it at 60 though, and it's his money in his account, paying down the mortgage, helping a grandkid with tuition, or sitting in a TFSA. He controls where it can grow and pass to his family tax-free. Some people sleep better with a smaller check they command than a larger one dangling 5 years out, promised by the same government that's quietly moved the retirement goalposts more than once in living memory. That's not being bad with money, that's knowing whose hands you trust it in, and it's why nearly 40% of Canadians born between 1940 and 1950 took their CPP. At 60, which isn't a nation of fools, it's a generation making a bet they understood. So that's 8 solid reasons, which brings us to the one that can cancel every single one of them, because there's a genuinely strong case for waiting, and it would be dishonest to send Dave off without it. Delaying CPP is the closest thing to guaranteed inflation-proof longevity insurance that exists in this country. Because if you wait from 60 to 70, your monthly pension more than doubles, landing 122% bigger, government-backed, rising with inflation, and paid for as long as you live. No bank sells you that with zero risk, and in a strange way, it's the only pension that pays you more the longer you're stubborn enough to keep breathing. The National Institute on Aging ran the numbers, and the actuary who led the work, Dr. Bonnie Jean MacDonald, found the average Canadian gives up around $100,000 of lifetime income by starting at 60 instead of 70, which is why she calls delaying the best retirement deal in Canada, and yet more than 90% of Canadians claim at 65 or earlier, with fewer than 1 in 20 waiting all the way to 70. So here's the honest resolution, and it's the entire point. Remember the bet. If you're healthy, you've got savings to bridge the gap to 70, and your family tree says you'll comfortably see your mid-80s, then waiting wins and it isn't close. So take that bet. But if you need the income now, if your health is a real question, if you'll lean on GIS, or if you simply trust yourself with your own money more than a system that might not be exactly as promised in 15 years, then taking it at 60 is defensible, rational, and often the smarter move, and no stranger behind a desk should ever shame you out of it. Look how differently it lands for 2 people. For Dave, laid off at 58, a rough family history, and savings he'd rather not burn, 60 is the right answer, and the math backs him. But for Rick, healthy at 60, with a paid-off house, a full RRSP, and a father still gardening at 91, waiting to 70, will likely pay him tens of thousands more over his life than Dave ever sees. Same plant, same formula, and 2 opposite right answers, because there's no universal move, no single age that's correct for everyone, Only your move, based on your health, your money, and your family. So do 3 things before you decide. First, log into your My Service Canada account and pull your own real numbers at 60, 65, and 70, not the maximums I quoted, because yours are almost certainly lower, and that changes everything. Second, be brutally honest about your health and your family history, because that's half the bet. And third, ask yourself whether you'll ever touch GIS, because if the answer is yes, the early number is far stronger than it looks. This is your one retirement, and there are no do-overs, so understand that 60 isn't a mistake and it isn't a trap, it's a choice, and all that matters is making the one that fits your life instead of the one that fits Ottawa's spreadsheet. And if this cleared even one thing up, go ahead and hit subscribe, because next week we're breaking down the exact order to stack CPP, OAS, and GIS. So you keep the most of your own money and hand the very least of it back. You paid into the system for 40 years, so the least you can do now is take it back out on your terms, not theirs.